Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first virtual 2020 annual Vermont Nurses Association meeting. I would like to start by wishing you and your families my personal best for your health and safety in these difficult times. I'd also like to express my profound gratitude to all the doctors, nurses, and workers who are serving so selflessly on the front lines of this healthcare crisis. I'm honored to have served as your president and past vice president for the past 5 years. I am pleased to see for the first time in several years a full board for Vermont ANA. 5 years ago, there was actually 2 people, Meredith and I, and that was it. So I am very excited to see a full board. And also, I welcome our new president, Andrew Kell, who will be taking over effective tonight or tomorrow morning. So now I'd like to turn it over to Carol, who is our foundation president and program director, who will be announcing our scholarship winners.
Hi, and thank you all for, I would say coming out on this rainy evening, I couldn't help but think that it's nice not to have the drive during this kind of weather. So it is an honor to be the president of the ANA Foundation. The foundation's purpose really is to be able to support nurses and students of nursing to further their education. And so with that, there have been fundraisers in the past where we have made publications. So we are an organization, the ANA Vermont is an organization of being, I believe, 106 years old. So that's quite a history. The foundation isn't quite as old as that. And one of our things besides raising money so we can provide scholarships is to also increase awareness of what nurses do in the state of Vermont. So that's the role of the foundation. So I'd like to go ahead and announce the winners of our scholarship awards. And I don't know if that's me being mumbled or if that's somebody's phone that needs to be muted. Okay, so the first winner I'd like to announce is Laura Lang. And Laura Lang is a doctorate in nursing practice candidate, and she is going to be receiving the Judy Cohen Scholarship Award. I couldn't think of a better candidate to do this since Laura knew Judy personally. She had been her instructor or professor in nursing theory. So she will be receiving a $2,000 scholarship award in the name of the Judy Cohen Scholarship. So congratulations, Laura.
Thank you very much.
And the next scholarship I'd like to announce is the Pat and Alan Scholarship. And that goes to Julie Giroux, who is the recipient. She's a baccalaureate BSN student. And I think that Pat was a nurse from the Northeast Kingdom, and she was an advocate for many years as a for nursing and supported the VSNA, the ANA Vermont, and her husband was a strong supporter as well. And so Julie will be receiving a $1,500 scholarship. So congratulations, Julie. I don't know if you're here tonight or not. And the third scholarship winner is the Arthur L. Davis Scholarship, which is a $1,000 scholarship award. And that is going to be given to Valerie Lemire. Valerie is in the BSN program at Vermont Technical College. And she has recently changed positions from being a birth center nurse to being a school nurse. So, and she was thrilled to receive this award to help her with furthering her education. So congratulations, Valerie. And I don't know if she's on the call either.
She is.
Okay, great. Congratulations,
Thank you very
Valerie. Okay. And that is all the awards for tonight.
That's very exciting. So I am going to wind up sharing the screen so that I can provide for you some more information. So here we go. There it is.
While you're doing that, Meredith, I'd just like to say that it's also thrilling to see that we have positions for the foundation that have been filled during this this ballot season. So it's an exciting time, even though it's a stressful time in the world of healthcare.
It is. All right, I'm going to just go through. We have, and just so that people can see it, this is our agenda. We're right now on schedule. We're just fine. And we're going to be talking just briefly the election result. And if Andrew comes in, we'll let him say something. But at this point, I don't see him as part of this yet. So I'm going to go straight to the election results, and these have been certified. So we have Andrew Kell is the new president that will be taking his role immediately. One of the things that's going to be happening that in the new bylaws that is just been approved is that there'll be a president-elect position that can be elected. But I'll talk about that in a minute. There's none yet because that doesn't start till next year. We have a vice president, Jessie Lynn Dolan, and she is in her role now. Treasurer Amy Schwar last year was our new graduate representative and new director, and she is now taken over the treasurer, and we greatly appreciate her expertise in QuickBooks. She's already jumping into that role and will be the one presenting the financial reports today. And our secretary is Kathleen Craig, who was the former treasurer and has basically gone into a different role. Our new membership director, who was just elected, is Amy Vischer Lynch, and she is wonderfully expert in many different, she has a world of expertise from leadership. You've seen the voting, so I'm not going to go and read what you just had in the voting, but she's a CFO. She knows about management and nurse leadership and is highly qualified, and I'm excited to have her as a membership director. We have still our delegate Ruth Elsa, past president, is still our membership assembly delegate. That's a 2-year role. And Cynthia is still the alternative delegate. That will be a position that'll be open next year. So if people are interested, spread the word. You've met already our new foundation president, Carol Hodges, who is our program director with much years of experience being a peer reviewer and a nurse educator. Lori, we so appreciate you being a part of the organization, and I do hope that you stay connected with us, though I know it's been exhausting, and we just appreciate you so much that you've done. And then we had a write-in potentially for the foundation vice president that we would still need to confirm. She wrote in that, but there's a process that has to happen with that. But she has references, and at this point it would be an appointed position if she is approved to be on the board of trustees for the foundation board. So she has to become on the foundation board and then be elected to the position by the members there. There are also other board members that help to serve with that. Andrew, our new president, will also be a board trustee of the foundation, as will Jessie Lynn. So they are already members on that. And I just recently had somebody that was interested in being on our nominating committee, Michelle Wade. Now the committee memberships are open. We have other committee memberships and would love to have more members on that from our, bylaws committee, government affairs committee, and we could always use help on those. But So welcome new board members. I'm excited, as Lori mentioned, to have all of you on board. So I'm going to go right down, and I want to talk about the bylaws as the next thing. So I have to stop the sharing quickly. I may come back to this, but this way you can actually look at the bylaws if interested as we go through. As I was mentioning before, for the bylaws, one of the things that is new that's in the bylaws is that we will have a president-elect position. We looked at the terms. Here we are. And this is something that you can view on our online. You can see it on our website. There was 3 words we need to maybe fix. I know that we have the ability to do that as a board, to just add these 2 words, but to make this even, I will mention as we go along. Most of this is all the same. There were some formatting changes that occurred. The student affiliates were, and the other affiliates were there last year. The annual meetings, we have to have at least 4, but we tend to have monthly meetings. So there's very little that's changed. The quorum has not changed at all. The term of office here that I have in yellow, there are 3 words that we need to add, because in the term limits, it needs to be consistent with what it says about starting at the fiscal year. One of the things that we're looking at as a board is better mentorship and succession planning. So what we decided to do was have basically a kind of a more of a team approach starting next year, with, as people are leaving, that there'll be mentorship of the next person coming on, starting at the adjournment of the annual meeting, so that they're working with the old board member until January, and then January they're on their own. So that's a change that is, I think, positive. I think you'll just find this easier to read. Some of just the formatting seemed to be a bit of a mess as we go through. If there are any questions on any of this, let me know. A lot of this, as you go through this, it tells you what all the committee meetings are, the term limits, like the president role, for example, is a 2-year term. The vice president is a 2-year term. And they're very specific, it's every other year we have different people that come on board. So you'll have, like, next year will be, it won't be a president election, it'll be a vice president that gets elected, that we will be looking now at that president-elect position as a possibility, if we have people that are willing to do that role. Hopefully you've had a chance to look over this and there's not too much that you're finding confusing. Are there any questions about it? I'm going to stop sharing that and then go on to the next, if we have no questions, so that we can stay on track. So I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to share that as we had the election, I also asked people what their priorities were and if there were any write-in things that they wanted to have. And what came out, that was workplace safety was the highest priority, which is not surprising, because it includes things such as PPE availability. Advocacy was a very close second, then education, climate change, and there was also the concern about racism and social injustice that came up as something that was a concern this year. So I thought it would be interesting just to, as we go through, to say, let's look at what was accomplished. So I'm going to very quickly just look, and so that we can see what happened as far as our workplace safety. What did we do for you this year? So some of the things that you'll see is that we had, nurse leaders we offered to be on the actual task force when they were first coming out with even before the joint briefing of the state legislators. Both the leaders at the Organization of Nurse Leaders and American Nursing Association Vermont leaders were willing to be on the task force. By the time WHO declared the coronavirus an epidemic, the ANA was very involved at the national level, talking about appropriate PPE. By the time Governor Scott declared the state of emergency, this was when the crisis standard of care went into effect. And if you remember, the crisis standard of care was what we presented in the 2019, was like our fall conference. So we barely got that crisis standard of care that talked about scarce resources in place before the crisis came out. Many states did not have one, but we collaborated with other stakeholders to help that happen with the Department of Health. And they're updating right now that crisis standard of care plan. So if you have things that you don't think worked well with that crisis standard of care plan, please email me, because that is under discussion. So going on, we met with local nurse groups. And at the national level, Debbie Hatmaker was also meeting with the president and other leaders. And by the time March 20th came along, we were creating a coalition with other organizations, and we were starting to meet every Friday talking about public health issues. We had OPR, Phyllis from the Board of Nursing, many nurse-related stakeholders were invited to be a part of this discussion. We wound up doing multiple surveys, and reports of the rationing came out. And we then wound up actually creating a coalition with the state school nurses, Vermont Nurse Practitioners, Organization of Nurse Leaders, Northeast Multi-State Division. We wound up on the front page of the paper multiple times. And at the same time, we were doing things like the American Nurses Foundation did the Coronavirus Response Fund to help support nurses. We wound up being involved. We wound up talking with the Senate pro tempore President Jim Ash, and wound up being involved, getting on at the table, thanks to Commissioner Mike Sherling and people at the Vermont Commission of Women, and so that we were actually at the decision-making aspect, when before we were just kind of not included, and nurses became a part of the plan and having contributions into the plan. And that still is happening, especially right now with school nurses. So we also have done support groups online. There's a National Suicide Committee that we're participating in. And of course, there are all the national survey results. So we have the national results I'm showing you right here. I'm not going to read them to you, but you can see there's still many nurses that are experiencing shortages and have to reuse their N95 masks. This is, as you can see, we have 68% of nurses saying they're requiring the reuse of N95 masks. That's nationally. And, so that we're seeing that, or 88% saying that it's required or encouraged at their facility. So this is a problem, not just in Vermont, that we're experiencing. If you look at just Vermont results, half of our nurses have experienced shortages. And for 52% of our nurses, the PPE has become more available, but for nearly half, it's about the same as it was back in May. There's still, the reuse of the single-use items, and about half feel very uncomfortable about that reuse. And some 33% have had to reuse for a week or more. As far as other advocacy, we've been very involved in the legislature. There's part of the strategic planning. The big budget bill just passed. We got to contribute and talk up with senators about that. These are just some of the bills that have passed. I think I'm out of my time, getting very close, I think, but I guess I can talk for just a few more moments. All right. So we have a workforce strategic plan that is being created now, thanks to H607 being passed. And we are known by people like in the Senate Health and Welfare Committee, and they really do listen to nurses, especially, Senator Lyons has been a real trooper and support for our organization and really hearing our needs and listening to us. And of course, there's a nurse that's in the House Healthcare Committee as well. And so we're heard, people know what we look like. They know, they are interested in hearing what we have to say. And I really encourage people to advocate and talk to their legislatures because they really want to hear from us. The Older Vermonters Act, this was exciting that this got passed too, because this is going to assure that self-determination for older Vermonters. And then S 187 was just barely signed by Governor Scott on October 12. Unfortunately, the nursing compact bill did not pass. It was passed by the Senate and it was discussed in the House, but then the emergency legislation that passed that allowed nurses without a state license to practice in Vermont without a Vermont license. So with that Act 240, it kind of changed the atmosphere and extended the emergency provisions. When those run out next year, I fully expect the nurse compact will become an issue again. So we are a part of the Climate Health Alliance. So this is something that we were active and helping to be a part of making this pass because we have strong climate advocates in our group. And so it passed the House and Senate, was vetoed by the governor, but the veto was overturned and it is now Act 153. So a climate council is being created. If people are interested, 2 strong contacts that we can contact are Dan Quinlan, who's the founder and coordinator of the Vermont Climate and Health Alliance, which is more than just us. And Karen McKinney is a nurse educator who he's presented at conferences for us and for others. And she has helped to write articles for our paper. All right, I think I'm going to stop at this point so that I allow Amy to have time for her financial report, and we'll talk more about our strategic plan right at the end of the meeting after she's done.
Hello, I am going to attempt to share my screen, having not done this before, so bear with me.
I'm going to make you a host.
Oh, maybe that would help.
And that will allow you to do sharing. Just
Okay.
remember to let me be host back sometime.
Okay, let's see. Here we go. Open. Can you all see that? It's kind of tiny. Let's see if I can open it more. So right now I have this membership dues statement. I try to give a timeline for the last 365 days, or I should say 12 months. So we can see how our membership dues that come from the American Nurses Association fluctuate, which is normal, but how can we better manage our membership to be able to optimize our ability to have more members, which is something we've all talked about, is trying to increase our membership and figuring out how to leverage that. So that's that statement. And this statement of activity by quarter is essentially, so essentially this year has been a struggle to clarify our accounting and to gain access. So Meredith has been very helpful helping me get access. So there's been some people playing with QuickBooks and putting information in, but being able to digest it and look at it and see what it means has been a struggle. It's not perfect. I'm still working on it, so just bear with. Having just gained access to the foundation account, which is a separate entity from the general fund, but it still is showing up in our statements for now, since there isn't a treasurer for the foundation right now. And that happened in the third quarter, which will show in a different statement. But you can see in the first and second quarter, we had some revenue loss, which is not surprising. That was the beginning of the pandemic, and we weren't able to hold our legislative day that day. And we made decisions also not to hold a live conference, which would have been this month for reasons that we all know about. So we just kind of put ourselves in a holding pattern. And Meredith did take some time off to try and lower down, and we decreased the amount of time she worked to just try to stay in this holding pattern. And our goals, of course, are to increase our revenue, and revenue sharing has become a piece that could be optimized as well. That's coming from, for instance, Northeast Multi-State Division, people who have their malpractice insurance through ANA and go through our state. We get revenue sharing from people with that there. And then there are some other organizations that will, if people who are members of ours go through ANA for travel or to get other insurances, car insurance and that sort of thing, we get revenue sharing from that. And that's what these bits and pieces are. And of course, some of this stopped after the pandemic kind of took over. People were tamping down. And some of these aren't even realized. Some of these are realized the quarter after they were earned as well. So that's essentially, that's a telling statement. And then the cash flows, this is where the foundation was dumped into our QuickBooks. The foundation has been here much longer, but this is where I gained access and started downloading in QuickBooks, and there it appeared. So this opening balance here is the foundation opening balance, and eventually over time, I'll be able to build and flesh out 2020. I didn't go backwards from 2020 because I didn't want to, because taxes had already been done and that sort of thing. So this payroll liability is an accidental dump into trying to pull our workman's comp out of the wrong account. So Meredith's been fighting to get those off there. And our credit card, of course, is down here. And then the last statement is financial position. So you can see from each of our accounts, there's the foundation account dumping there. Money market's been pretty steady. And this is our checking account, which is looking much better than it has in a long time. And credit cards, the credit cards. So as we get a better financial picture, this is building more and more, and we can see places where we can build from there. And then the big thing is Meredith and I will be social distancing near her place. I'll head up November 18th, and we're going to spend a little time trying to figure out processes around how to do income and expenditures and how to get quick board approvals of certain things and finalize those things. So we have that in place and other policies. Does anybody have any questions before I?
It's Rosemary Dale. I have a quick question. I'm wondering, is it going forward, are you planning to commingle the foundation funds with the organization funds? So I noticed in this financial statement, they're commingled.
Right. So the foundation is a nonprofit and has a different status IRS wise than the rest of the general fund. The general fund, because we do lobbying and legislative activity, is separate. It was dumped here, the foundation was dumped here because I haven't figured out how to separate it, which should be easy to find out, but those will be separated for the next month. But
Thank you. Thanks.
Rosemary, just so you know, the actual accounts are separate. So we have, the accounts in banking are a separate
Mhm.
account. So even though
Great.
they come together in the financial statement, they're actually completely separate accounts.
Thank you.
Amy, I have a question too. It's Pat Donahauer. I sent out a message on the chat. I don't know if anyone saw it. And Amy, you you may have answered my question, but because I'm on the VNIP board and we applied for COVID relief from the state because we are not able to do the kind of consulting work that we usually do, and our organization was significantly impacted by that, and we were approved and granted a nice little chunk of money. So I don't know if any part of our operation, either the foundation or the ANA Vermont, would qualify for that, but it might be something to look into.
right, and we talked about also, if I remember correctly, something about payroll reimbursement to be able to help with Meredith staying on a little bit more too. And I don't remember who was going to take any of that stuff on. Question for you is, was that funding state or was it federal funneled through state? How did you?
Well, I don't know. The person who would know more about it is Susan Boyer, who I think most of you know. And my impression was it was state, but I can't say for sure.
Okay.
We definitely applied
was.
to the state for it, but I don't know where it came from.
It
Okay.
did come up at one point in discussion. And one of the concerns was we had somebody that we contracted early on that was working for us just as a contract employer. Well, she had been doing a couple days a month and then she went down to 1 day a month. And then we had to let her go. And so there's some very specific rules about if you let people go, that there were people on the board that they weren't sure if we would qualify because of those things. And so
We honestly thought it was a very long shot for VNIP too. So just might be worthwhile talking to first Susan Boyer and then the powers that be.
I think it's worth talking to Sue. I think it's worth talking to Sue. And
Great, thank you. Anybody have any other questions before I close? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. And I need to give you back hosting ability. Have no idea how to do that, Mayor. Oh, here we go. All
There you
right,
go.
it's all up to you now.
you got it. All right. So, and good job, Amy, because this is, she's just taking over the treasurer role. So I think she did a good job. One of the things that changed when I came on, things had just been on paper. And so what we wound up doing is putting things online and making them more transparent. And so that it wasn't just me looking at the books, but that all the board members could be looking at the books, and that, I wanted the treasurer to be able to look at the books. It was just, to me, it was a matter of accountability, and Amy felt the same way. So we wanted to make sure that there was accountability there. We have also tried to do some things to assist with finances, such as, we have, the sponsor that, NSO, who is a liability organization, we get some royalties from. The Legal Eagle, if somebody signs up for the Legal Eagle, we'll get royalties from that. The Elite Education, the Splash Financial, Success Pays, these are all ways that we're bringing in revenue that's not just dues related information, or it's not just member dues, to try to bring in more income. And, basically what I wound up doing is taking a 2-month furlough so that it was an unpaid time to help reduce the cost. At this point, I wind up working 16 hours a week, and the rest of my time for the organization is volunteer. And that's what we can afford right now with our budget, without having, other sponsorships and things like that. So we're looking for different ways to do dues. We couldn't do the Leaf Peeper race, that we did, and the conference. So all of those things we're hoping to be able to do next year, but it's not been a possible thing for this year. All right, let me go back to sharing here so that we can finish up. Kathleen was going to try to make it she's from the NEMSD. I don't know if she is on, though, if she actually made it. Because we were trying to make it work, but I don't believe that she is there. We were basically hoping that she would have the opportunity to talk about the Northeast Multi-State Division, but as she's not here, I'll just give you a quick synopsis that we are part of this Northeast Multi-State Division. So at this point, it includes New Hampshire, Vermont. At this time, it's New York, but New York is not going to stay with it, and Hawaii. It's basically a small group of states that we're sharing the expenses so that we wind up having shared services. One of the ways that we do that, for example, is the Nursing Network site. So, this is a cost, that's about $3,000 if we're just paying for it out of pocket. But the whole cost of the NEMSD for the entire year for us is only $869 per quarter right now. So it more than is useful for us to have those shared services, and it brings us other things as well, such as the Grasshopper calls and the Jot forms and other different types of services that are useful for the organization. There's only a virtual office. I basically work from home at this point. We have a mini storage instead of an office. We have a box that we pay for. So we've really trimmed down costs as much as we possibly can to try to, make it so that people are getting the bang for their buck, and that we're just putting money on members' needs. So the Northeast Multi-State Division, it helps with advocacy, it helps with those shared services, but it's, it's not, we meet every month or so, and we wind up sharing some excellent benefits and as well as leadership ideas through them. And it gives us insights about what's going on in neighboring states as well. So it's also useful. So Kathleen Hale is the Northeast Multi-State Division Executive Director, and she's the one that we're missing right now. But so I wanted to just share as we're going forward about our, what our plan was, and also get input from the rest of members, just what about their concerns are, what we need to do going forward. I shared some of the different comments that people had, and our 2019 to 2020 strategic plan had things like the sustainability that wasn't wholly reliant on the dues income, like the sustainable budget and increasing revenues, which is one of the things that we have been working on. We now have a budget that is sustainable. I only wind up being able to work a few days a week, but we're now making a positive benefit, even though we haven't had any big revenue producers this year. We're still on track to, have an adequate income to be able to be sustainable going into next year. So that's a positive thing. We have, advocacy has been tremendous this year. So even though we have not been able to do a conference, I think that people are more aware that ANA Vermont is here because we've been in the news more than we ever have before. We've been, talking with other organizations. We're doing things with Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation. That's good for the health of nurses. That's not just helping encourage the health for Vermonters, but also the health of nurses. Some of the neat coalition partnerships I've already talked about, like the Climate Change Alliance, helping the, different alliances with the Department of Health and with school nurses, with advanced practice nurses, with the Vermont Commission on Women, the Organization of Nurse Leaders. So these are organizations that we're working with, and we have a coalition with the advanced practice nurses, the school nurses, and the Organization of Nurse Leaders, where we're moving forward. And as I mentioned, that we have people that are at the table and they're looking at the crisis that's ongoing. And we're actually looking, the person that is our representative, who has been Eileen Gerling, is getting tired in her role and will need to be figuring out a replacement with her going forward, whether that be somebody from our board or a representative that could come from the community. So we'll be looking for somebody to assist in that role going forward. So as we're looking at these different things that we have for the strategic plan and working toward increasing the engagement and enhancing our website and these relationships, I would really like to hear from, and I'm going to stop sharing this so that people can have a chance to be face to face and just talk about what are some things that we're not doing for you? What do we need to do? What are some things we need to do going forward?
Chime in. I have over the past year followed the Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation social media platform and have found a connection to across the United States nurses who are trying tirelessly to improve their wellness personally and professionally. And I think I think that would be something that maybe we could, I know we had talked about, if I'm remembering correctly from last year's meeting, was doing more with that. And that's one of the, so in my DNP right now, the class that I'm in is one of the IT technology and social media stuff. And it was a big conversation that came up in this week's discussion board was how do we get connection at our fingertips and meeting people where they're at, and not having to click into multiple emails that come flooding into our email box. I've actually emailed the ANA and said, enough is enough. Like, I get 5 emails a day from you guys. Like, can we get this into one? Can we get this tidied up some way? Because it becomes white noise to whatever, it just doesn't show what the focus should be. There's like 15 different listservs they've got going on. And it just feels like an inundation. And we're like, from my educator standpoint, my email box is full, bursting at the seams, 100+ emails a day sometimes. And so I'm trying, it would be great to get rid of some of that white noise and really hone in on what's important to share.
Is it coming, do you know if it's coming from the things you're subscribed to, the listserv kinds of things? Can you unsubscribe?
Yes, well, at least the ones that I'm thinking of the smart briefs and there's all of the CE opportunities. It feels like those happen at least once a day. Like,
Ah,
remember to find this exciting one, and then they've got bolded items, and
So
I know they're
periodically,
marketing, I know they're trying to get us to grasp it, but it's almost too much.
no,
And
I hear that. And when we talk about, are we getting too much of that? Because it seems like there are a lot of things that are going out to me too. They say, oh, well, we've checked and people say that it's not too much. So when you get those evaluations that say, you know, are you getting too much email? Check too much, you know,
Yes,
and let them know
absolutely.
you're doing just the right thing to let them know. Because it's, you know, I know that I've tried to be sure that I condense when I send out things so that it's not multiple times a day or letting everybody know what's going on. I try to make it less from, you know, my nursing network side, but I can't control national and what they send out.
Yeah.
So, but that's a good thing to know. We are, one thing that we're doing, I forgot to mention that's kind of interesting is we're about to do an organizational assessment, which is looking at the excellence standards so that we'll become a more excellent organization. And, you know, it basically really evaluates everything from our policies to people knowing their roles and things like that. So that may uncover some things too, and hopefully we can give them feedback on things as well as, you know, what we're not doing right. We can tell them some things that could be improved as well.
I wanted to tail in on that, Laura. I'm middle-aged, so email is what I grew up kind of with as a young adult. But and I don't know how to do this. I'm not even on Facebook, but there are so many different ways that people, younger generations, they connect with things like Instagram, Twitter, those kinds of things. And knowing how to connect with them is also an important piece in that kind of platform. And I think that what we would benefit from is somebody who knows how to set those up or is willing to learn how to set those things up so we can communicate with people who don't automatically communicate with email. So
I am willing to do that
Excellent.
if you need help. I
I do.
am a face. I love to just scroll on Facebook. And my new passion is Instagram because I find it refreshingly simple. And it's just an image or a quick quote, not anything heavy.
right.
I am not great at Twitter. I've only learned that from the ANPD when I've gone to conferences. They highly tout that, but I'm not great at handles and hashtags, but I'm willing to learn more. I just, in my busy life, I need somebody feeding me what I need to post. I can help with that, but it would be something that would probably need ANA permission. Thinking higher, because we're a representative of that organization, it'd have to be like approved.
Right. That's great, Laura, because making things digestible, I think, is what you're saying.
Yes.
And I agree. If somebody wants to look at the highlights, because sometimes those briefs, the ANA briefs, catch my brain because I'm like, it's relevant to me, but it can be way too much. So I'm right there with you. I'm all about digestible. Make it quick. Grab me or make me give it up. One or the other.
Yeah, like a sound bite, like give me AFib on a on a virtual stethoscope. Like give me like 30 seconds to a minute and we're done, kind of stuff.
Pat, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wondered how many members we have and what do we know about our membership profile? I am towards the end of my career, so I have probably a very different view of things. But I'm just wondering what we know about our membership as we look at that strategic plan.
It's hard to know by looking at the list, just how much we can find out, you know, where people work, because that's a lot of times in the database that what they wind up doing. We have about, I think, 430 members right at this moment. You know, that fluctuates by as much as 30, you know, in a month, you know, depending on what's going on. But it's, you know, I think for the voting, I think there was a total of 432 members that wound up, you know, having access. And there's thousands of nurses that are in Vermont. So it's kind of disappointing that, you know, we have that small percentage, but we're not the only ones that are having
That's
that issue.
actually, I think that's not bad compared to traditionally. That's about the number we've had.
Yeah.
Even when we had some more the bargaining units and so forth and so on. So I'm surprised, but I'm happy by that number. But you know, it's always been in Vermont that there are a small subset of even members of organizations who are willing to put any time and effort into it. And so it, you know, that's why we're familiar with each other to a certain degree, at least those of us at my end of the spectrum. And
I'm there too.
I care very much that there is an organization that represents the voice of nurses. And I love that you've been down at the legislature and that people have some sense of where to go to get nursing information. The other thing I love is when you say you're talking to other groups, because I think in Vermont and maybe everywhere, it's a matter of combining our strengths. We just all, everybody's working and families and busy, and you just have to combine strengths in order to get anything done.
Before COVID came, we were about to co-sponsor the Nurse Legislation Day with the advanced practice nurses. So we were all set to go. Of course, that ended with COVID because, you know, but, you know, we'll still wind up probably doing that in the future. You know, it's really kind of tricky to figure out what's going to happen as far as the legislature. Will we be able to actually go down face to face like we did at the beginning of last year? And then we couldn't, and it was all Zoom, and, you know, people would recognize, you know, thankfully it wasn't my first year because, you know, it would have been harder because they at least could recognize my name when I was like saying things and doing an email to, you know, Ginny Lyons or somebody like that. She could have had something that she could associate, but it would be wonderful if we had, you know, like a whole like group that was interested in, you know, the government affairs. We used to have a whole committee that did government affairs. And one of the things that would be a great thing would be if we had like at least one person from each district so that, you know, they would talk to their legislator and keep them appraised about what the nurse issues are. And it frustrates me that, you know, I can't do it all.
There's a question. Someone is asking, what is VICE? The chat board question.
Oh, that was Laura was talking about maybe VICE would co-sponsor that. Laura Lang, do you know what is VICE?
Vermont in Service Continuing Education. Carol and I are affiliated with it. It's kind of it's a nursing education organization, and it's not well, there's not a lot of members, and we don't meet regularly anymore. It's been challenging in the past few years to accomplish that, but it might be something that we could collaborate with ANA on.
Laura, this is Rosemary. I think you bring up a really good point here. And I would really love to see the organization make a push, as I think, Meredith, you said it was trying to do things in conjunction with other organizations. To go out and do things alone is, first of all, exceedingly expensive. And second, everyone is saying the same thing. They have inadequate membership and inadequate dues. So I think as much as we can partner, we are better as a discipline, and we come from a position of increased strength.
I do too. It's more powerful to come together in groups, you know, in advocacy in particular. It just makes great sense.
Hi, it's Peggy. Do you think that the focus has changed? Do you think that since COVID, folks have changed their focus on what's important and what they want from the organization?
Well, certainly when I've put that list in there, you know, it's, you know, workplace safety is the top of the list. And a lot of times it's something else other than that workplace safety. I think that people are concerned about being safe in their workplace. It's not just the workplace violence, it's the having adequate PPE, being, you know, going in and making sure that they're safe when they come home from their families as well, you know.
So as I'm here working. How do I know that the association has made a difference in my workplace? How does that information get fed back to the staff nurse to say, wow, this is an organization I do want to belong to because it does make a difference? Because I don't hear it on this end. If I read the email, but a lot of staff nurses don't read the email because they're busy, and you know, as you said, you get email overload, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'll read this later. CEUs, okay, that's good, but I can't do that right now because I gotta, you know, worry about who's going to cover the next shift or whatever's going on, and I think that everything I've listened to kind of points to quick information. Show me what you can do for me, and tell me how you can do it quickly, because I don't have a lot of time to read something. So how do you change what it's not going to be big meetings. It's not going to be I don't know how you get the information out. Like you said, I'm at the end of my career too, so how I get information is different than somebody who's just starting, which is that's the session. How do you draw those folks in?
So,
You have to
so
find-
this is Carol. So I think what you're really talking about is giving people sound bites. Like when we listened to everything that the ANA Vermont had done in the past year, even despite COVID, we still accomplished a fair amount of things that were on a strategic plan. So I think even as a member who participates on the board and does things, that it's not always really clear, hey, this is what our strategic plan was, and this is what we did. And I think lots of times they don't really want a lot of information because they don't have a lot of time, whether it's because of work or whether it's because of a school or whether it's because of family. So I think that's a problem. And it's not like the old days. I am at the end of my career as well, since I just retired. But the thing is that I think what it is that organizations used to support us to go to conferences, to go do things. And I don't think the organizations today have the financial backing to do that. And not only that, but they also don't have the staff to support people, a large number of people, because their FTEs are just so tight to run whatever units they're running. So I think all of this stuff is great, and I think we just have to, even if it's not what how our generation is used to communicating, it's nice to see that even though we're in that spectrum towards the end of our careers, we're still interested in how do we communicate with that younger population of nurses and how do we get them involved. So I guess that's all I have to say.
You know, and I think a lot of attention is paid to specialty organizations, nephrology nursing, critical care nursing, surgical nursing. So if you're going to spend a lot of time or money to an organization, you're putting it towards your specialty because you get more recognition. I'm not going to get recognition, you know, for American Nurse Association. I'm going to get recognition for being a CCRN, you know. So I think that, again, focus on limited time and money.
You know, we have coming up, we'll have the next legislative session that'll be coming on, and we won't even know what all those bills are until, you know, January, when things start to get introduced. But as different things are being introduced, it would be great if we had a team of, you know, if we knew what the interests of people are, like, you know, Laura was talking about Instagram and things like that. So if we had, you know, topics that were of interest to, you know, it might be, you know, that it's an emergency nurse, you know, kind of a topic. It might be something that's a nurse practitioner or advanced practice nurse topic, but they're different things like that. So, you know, part of the challenge is how do we get out the information to people? One thing that we're starting this year as of December is we'll have a little newsletter that goes out. I have my, you know, my executive director newsletter that I have done like monthly or every other month when I'm on furlough and whatnot. But this has the capability going through the Arthur Lewis Publishing. They will let it go out to everybody, all the nurses in the state, which we haven't done before. They didn't do it before. They just started doing it, offering this possibility. But by it going out, having just once a month going out, we can reach everybody. So if we could have like a topic of interest that would be something that's an attractive thing to young nurses, to different nurses, something that they could latch on to, that would be a way to draw membership. We just have to figure out, you know, what is that? What are those topics what do you think that those topics are that would really be attractive? I mean, we hear, okay, the workplace, the PPE, but how do we make that an appealing topic that, you know, you know, we can
I think
advocate. Go ahead.
what's really important is what are people tuned into? What media are they tuned into?
Mhm.
And so knowing, you know, what social media, how do you get your media? Are you reading newsletters? Do you know that you get a newsletter? Do you even acknowledge it? Or are you a Twitter follower? Are you a LinkedIn follower? Knowing that information would be better able to determine where we put our efforts, and because we just don't know that either. And then we can figure out, so what do people want to hear about? Which we have some answer, you know, the PPE and the safety and climate and that sort of thing. But we just have to be able to know where are we going with it.
No, and I think the other thing is bringing it to the workplace. I don't, you know, I see the union gets points across. I see the, you know, if there's an initiative in the hospital, the point gets across. If you bring it to the person, it's easier for them to become part of it, or just say, oh yeah, that is something I'm interested in. I don't know how you do that, but it just seemed to me that I was never, wasn't really active with the American Nurses Association. I just wasn't. And just a few years ago, going back to school at the end of my career to get a degree, I realized how important it was. So I missed out on a lot of what it could have done for me and what I could have done for it. And to get that information to folks, because I don't see it at the workplace. I don't see it. You know, I pay more attention to the emails, but I don't see it around my workplace.
And to dovetail that, Peggy, I would never have considered it, except also when I was in school, there was huge encouragement from my instructors. And I'll admit, Amy Lisser, Mr. Lynch, was my clinical nurse. So she's listening in on this, but it was highly encouraged. And Amy's also, when she was managing our staff ed department, said that it would be great to be able to tap into staff ed and have someone go and give a few minutes with a sound bite or a quick video to say, hey, it's really important for you to join your the ANA if you're nurses or what have you, because you can delve into things that are really interesting for yourself and take what you wish. But in Vermont, we do specifically these things in Vermont, and this is how we can help you and make it relevant. Just as a thought on that, that was Amy's suggestion on how to reach out to organizations and have someone speak to new staff.
I also was on at the AONL conference, virtual conference, and there was somebody who talked about a hackathon. And there's a website she said to how to do this, because I really didn't quite understand what it was. But because I am totally technology challenged in that space. But they said that it really did engage their younger, newer nurses that are really into and opened up that communication through this hackathon. I'm not sure, but it might be a way for us to reach people too.
I think other Amy has mentioned that once before too. So I don't know exactly that much what a hackathon is. So I think that it certainly might be worth a shot.
I'll pull up the website and look at the information, and then I can shoot it out to everybody.
Okay.
I think one of when we talk about breaking silos, right? Trying to work together and not be isolated, even in our small state. The thing with social media is you could tag other local nursing organizations. So if the ENA has a really active membership, or the School Nurses Association has an active membership, if there's ways to tag, and then it goes up on their feed differently, and they get more people to read it, more people to see it, and visibility goes up. When you talk about sound bites, I wonder if there is a nursing podcast for Vermont. These are the things from all these various organizations. If everybody gave 2 minutes of, we have a podcast at work now that a couple of people manage and post on. And it's something that, I don't know if across the state has anything, if anybody across the state has such a global kind of reaching podcast. But I know a lot of people who run or who are in their cars and they're like, I don't want to listen to anything on the radio, but I'll listen to something funny or something. I mean, there's plenty of nursing humor to go around. So there's people are making side gigs off of that, that it might be something to think of for networking.
I like the idea of something happy, something that, is a positive, because like you said, I think a lot of people right now are feeling a lot of angst. And, if there's something positive, something humorous that, has to do with nursing, it would be great if we could think of something that we could tag into there. Because people need that encouragement. They need, maybe we could look at the Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation, see if there's some ideas that they have more. We had the leaf peeper volunteers and things like that, which was fun, getting people running and volunteers, those fun activities. But now, all that's canceled. So it's frustrating right now. So how do we, I'm going to wind up talking to somebody at a Zoom meeting for a class. So I'll be sharing about, health politics and that kind of stuff, and the importance of getting involved with your nursing association. But it's like one person talking to one class isn't enough. It's like we need to somehow disseminate that information. So we're getting that into all the colleges, all the information, that the importance of being a part, so that nurses are advocated for. I agree. It doesn't seem like it's getting out there. We did for the first time this past year, we did press releases, we were in the papers, we did those kinds of things. So, we had some media exposure. That was, things got stirred up, So we went with that. We tried to, make sure that nurses' needs were being heard. So we need to know what those nurses' needs are. And I think that's the challenge, really. Hearing from nurses, getting them what's interesting, what's exciting, what's important, what is humorous to them that they want to hear. So if you find that out, feel free to email me because I want to know.
But it's also getting people involved and people wanting to get involved. Like I said, this is the first time that we've had a full board in the 5 years that I have been with ANA. And like others, I only joined it because I was doing my master's and I needed a practicum project, and ANA Vermont was it. But what I've seen is not a lot of involvement. People, whatever time they have, whether it be their job, their family, they just don't have the time or give the time. We have 400 some odd members out of how many thousands of nurses in the state of Vermont, and that's where it's kind of sad. We go to these conferences and we hear about thousands of members in New York and everything else where they can do a lot more. We're limited. We had to have Meredith take time off in order to, because we couldn't afford to pay her as a state. So, I'm excited that the board's here. I'm interested to see the changes. I'm hoping that more people can get involved. There's some great ideas out there. Like Rosemary said, it's great to pool your resources. I don't think that we can do it or survive as in one entity. I think it's going to require in Vermont everybody pooling together, because it's the same audience of people that we're all, vying for dues and all that. So, it's just more people. There's some great ideas. There's some things, but it's getting other people involved. My work offered to pay every ANA membership nursing license, their thing. People did not take them up on it. They didn't even do it. So, that was a sad situation, and we talked a lot about ANA because I was on the board, and, I would go to the schools and talk to new employees of the school. We got some people, but the interest just wasn't there. And it's kind of hard. I'm not sure how to get it sometimes. And maybe it's a newer generation of people, whether they don't understand the importance of what the organizations actually truly mean. Those of us that have been practicing for quite a few years, we understand what the needs are. When I went to legislature to talk about methadone induction and all that in the prison systems, and I was amazed at the people making decisions for nursing and for healthcare in our state that had no clue what they were talking about.
No clue.
That's totally what got me involved, because I was like, how can I let these people say how I'm going to practice when they are clueless? And that's kind of what people that have been in the system or have access to that are part of that. I think getting the word out more to the schools for the education part, so that there are people that go in and teach why is this important? Why is it important to belong? That's a start. But also I think collaborating with the other groups in Vermont is going to be huge for us in order to survive. I mean, we know that people are out of jobs and COVID and work and, the economy, that I think this is where we're headed right now. That's all I have to say about it.
No, it's an excellent point, Lori. And, as we're getting some younger members, how do we keep them interested? What's here that keeps them interested? As Peggy was saying, if they're working from home, if not just, they're different specialties and things like that. How do we keep them involved?
Well, the other thing Vermont does not have is where most people that for your regular registered nursing license, you're not required CEUs. You're only required to work a certain amount of areas or a certain amount of hours, where a lot of states require either half and half CEUs. So a lot of people belong to their nurses association because they need that CEU.
I just had the same exact thought, Lori. Like that is that and it amazes me that we do not require that.
Right.
From an educator standpoint and competency and
exactly
change management, and here goes my soapbox, but that is a huge driver for affiliations, like to have a professional organization that you connect with to get CEs. Like that's the biggest that's the biggest bonus for me as an ANPD member is I get a ton of CEs, like through my membership. Every month there's a free one and then there's a bunch of discounted ones. So, but I take that on myself. You know, there's no organizational support for that financially.
But I think, like you said, that would actually help some of the organization. But not only that, it would help people stay current, you know, with the current trends and all that. You know, we all deal and work, and I just gave up a position where I had 250 nurses, employees, and doctors and everything. And without doing CEUs, people become complacent. They don't know the change. When you and I went to school 30 years ago, things were different, some compared to what they are now. That I feel that's one part that we are lacking in Vermont. We're behind the times where people should be required, especially with certain things, to be CEU to make sure that they're practicing properly.
So it's Kathleen, and I hear you saying that. Why isn't this something the ANA can get with the Board of Nursing on to change?
Well, we'll leave that to the new president.
I think it's a good idea.
I know, I agree with you. I think that it has been brought up to Phyllis before, and it was a conversation. You know, I think it's definitely much higher than just Phyllis. It's a state, it's a legislature, it's a, you know, it's a lot different. I know that there was talk about it if we became a compact state, as to how would that work with a compact state, because some of the states that would be involved and that would be part of it do require CEUs. So I'm not sure where we're at with that, or, you know, we know that it didn't pass right now because obviously we had the emergency where people can practice, but that is definitely something that should be brought up if they're going to go forth with the compact licensure, is maybe that Vermont require a certain amount of CEUs.
I always think it's funny. My husband is a master electrician, and he has to have CEs to recertify, re-license every 2 years. My colleagues literally down the hall in respiratory therapy have to have CEs.
Yeah.
How do we not have that as professionals to
I'm on board.
raise ourselves up every 2 years to demonstrate continued learning? We teach our patients to have continued learning and to learn about themselves and grow as human and be well as human beings. And part of that is mental health and professional development. So it's
Yeah.
just.
No, I think you're preaching to the
You
choir.
know, the LNAs are required to have 12 hours a year.
The compact, so if we become part of the compact, the current compact would not require us to have nursing education, continuing ed. So that is something that we'd still have to do. A lot of different states do, but if we become part, that was one of the worries that a lot of people had as far as the compact. And we were basically assured that, no, you don't have to suddenly get the continuing ed requirements just because you become part of the compact. So just so you know, but I still think it's a good idea for us to get continuing ed for the state. For example, I think of when I started nursing, you know, the first chest tubes that I ever took care of were Emerson bottles. So how many people even remember that? And then, you know, they're all kind of, oh, God. I wasn't sure anybody on the call would remember those. But, you know, that's, you know, now they have all kinds of different Plurivacs and things that they have, and it's just everything's changed.
So it would be interesting for the board to do, to look at their data as far as board concerns, board complaints, you know, med errors, all of those things, to see, you know, what that looks like from that process of, you know, why would we not mandate some of those things, you know?
It's the same thing with workplace safety.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with safe patient mobility, IV medication administration. All of this safety stuff ties back to being aware of evidence-based new progressions, and that comes out in like INS, and it comes out on all your other affiliated it's just powerful. Yeah. Yes, and the LNAs, so that's a little bit of a gray area. The LNAs have the because I teach LNA students, and it's a little gray because there's this federal term, this federal CMS thing that says 12 hours a year, right?
Yes,
But-
it's a CMS requirement.
It's a CMS requirement, but there's also like when they go to recertify their license, it doesn't pop up. It talks about hours of practice. When they go, they'll all recertify in November. But it can
Right,
be
so
hours.
that information has to be held at the organizational level so that when they come in for your survey, you're presenting it. So
Correct.
to your point, it's not required by the board. It's required by CMS. So we don't have any requirements at all for nursing, and so the LNAs are required simply by the payers. So it's kind of interesting, and I think it's a good topic for discussion. Probably we could spend a lot more time on it. But it may be something we just want to include in our minutes. It says, you know, it may be something we would like to discuss with the board and advocate for change.
And there's Phyllis is retiring, the old executive director for Board of Nursing. So there's new board of, executive director that's coming on. So we're going to need to make introductions and build relationships there. So maybe it's a good way to do that.
That sounds like a great opportunity.
Who wants to come with me? We could do a
I
Zoom.
will, Meredith.
There you go. One of the things that I think that we're going to see more of is, we're started using Zoom technology. So as we meet with people, one of the ways that we can advocate instead of going as a group is, potentially to have a Zoom meeting with somebody and invite somebody to the board. So. Are there any other topics? We're getting down to the last few minutes of our meeting. I don't want anybody to feel left out. Who hasn't had a chance to talk? Jessie Lynn, did you have anything you wanted to say, or Rosemary?
Yeah, it's Rosemary. I would just say two things. I would like to just see us, you're one person, you're working 16 hours a week, and that's asking a whole lot of you, and certainly appreciate it, and all the other volunteers. But I'm wondering in the course of the year, if we can't look at one or two deliverables. And the strategic plan is great, but when I think of one or two deliverables, I think of what you've been talking about, which is visibility and coordination among other groups. So I wonder if we can't say that in the course of the year, we will put out 4 press releases. And that can be, you could put out your scholarships as press releases. And that shouldn't be a big, I mean, it's easy for me to say it shouldn't be a lot of work. It's still, somebody's got to write it, they got to send it out. So I'm just suggesting that we send something out so we create some visibility for the organization. The second is, I would really love to see us do one event or one outreach in coordination with another group. Mm-hmm. And then when we come back here and we sit here and we look at this next year, we say, okay, we said we were going to do those 2 things. They're completely measurable. We did them. Maybe we'll never do them again, but for now, they're done.
I like it.
Sorry, it took me a bit to find my mute button. This is Jessie Lynn. I don't really have anything to add. I just want to thank you guys for all the work and everything you have done, as I'm newer to this work, and look forward to helping and doing what I can. But thank you guys for everything you do.
And it's Peggy, and I'm loving seeing names that I haven't seen in such a long time. And
Peggy, I haven't
Lori,
seen you.
Lori,
Hello,
that's
Peggy.
you. I'm
I
looking at it. I'm like, I know, that's Lori.
But you know, it's funny because I just saw Kyle the other day and I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God, it's Peggy and Rosemary.
Yeah,
Oh my God, I love
And
you. I
Pat.
like missed you.
good to see you both. Good to see you all.
I like that. I'm going to remember what you said, Rosemary, about and see if we can make that, encourage that with our next board meeting as maybe, so what I'm hearing is 4 press releases and 1 outreach with another group. And, you know, I don't know
It's in the
whether,
minutes.
yeah, it'll be in the minutes, but it's something I want to remember and, you know, encourage. I think it's a great idea.
And thank you, Meredith, for everything that you have done and all the work that you have put into this and your dedication into ANA Vermont. Because really, without people like you, this organization really would not have survived all these years. You have done a remarkable job and it has not been easy. So thank you for everything.
You
that you've
helped,
done.
Lori. For a little while, it was you and me.
Yay, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Meredith. Yeah.
Thank you, Meredith. Thank you so much.
Well, thank
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you all for coming. We so appreciate all you've done. And Lori, you've been a great president. So stay
Thank you.
connected.
Yes,
think-
Lori, thank you. Thank you, Lori, for stepping in and stepping up. Thank you. Thank you for
Absolutely.
upholding.
Yep. Thank you, Lori.
All right. Bye-bye. See you guys later.
Good to see everyone. Bye.
See you all.